Welcome to the Simply Vanilla Stitching Knitting Podcast. I am Vanilla and I'm the woman behind this channel, and you can also find me on Instagram where I go by simplyvanilla.stitching. On Instagram I post more of a daily life update, whereas on here it's all about knitting and stitching and all of the things that has to do with stitching basically. This knitting podcast is all about my journey from being a new graduate student to getting my very first job. And in this time period, from me until I find a job, I am on a very, very, very tight budget. I have no money to splurge on yarn, and therefore I'll be using only what is in my stash. My stash is not very big. It's something I've created when I first started crocheting and knitting, so it's a lot of acrylic. I'll be sharing with you some free patterns, and I'm hoping that I can inspire you to pick up your old stash, even if it's acrylic, and knit some of these perhaps unknown patterns yourself. So I think that was the very introduction to this knitting podcast. This episode is going to be more of a knit and chat video. I have this thing where every other time I do a traditional knitting podcast where I go through my whips and my finished objects and such, and then every other than that, it's more of a chat and knit or knit and chat or some other types of content because I have some different coming up. But anyway, you've landed on a knit and chat video. It's gonna be primarily knitting related, so don't worry, but it is going to be much more of a chat and a little bit less of show. So, I'm coming to you from cloudy, for once, it's cloudy, Denmark. It has just rained. I think it stopped, but it has just rained, which is a very big change to what we've had the past week. We've had I want to call it a heat wave. It's been so warm here, it's been so humid, and it's been for so long. So it's nice with some clouds and some rain and in general just lower temperatures, because we're not, as Scandinavians, we're not created for that exceptional heat. So I'll be working on this little whip that I have right here. I'm not going to go into too much detail on it because this is going to be a little bit about the new content that is coming towards you guys, but it is going to be a t-shirt and I'm just working on the neck of it. It's going to be a v-neck, so that's why I'm knitting back and forth. I'm going to be knitting on this while we're going to chat, just to keep my hands busy and also get some rows in on this, because I'm not really that good at knitting on this because it's not really that interesting right now. It's just back and forth and I'm not here for it. But this is a self-drafted v-neck t-shirt in this white acrylic yarn that I tried knitting the Sara top from. Just doing an increase, that's pretty hard without looking. I did the Sara top by Sari Nordlund from this, which I frocked. So now I'm trying to just make a regular v-neck t-shirt, and I'm knitting with quite a loose gauge, so I'm hoping it's going to turn out very nicely. Anyway, on today's topics, we are going to talk about how I find my knitting patterns, so what I typically go for when I look at knitting patterns and how I spot the ones that I want to make. And then we're going to talk a bit about like some knitting pattern inspiration, where I think I have four knitting patterns that I want to show you guys. If you're wondering why I'm looking down, I have my trusty notes here, and also I have my yarn in between my legs, and I think we should just get into it. I don't think it's going to be such long. If it only takes me like 20 minutes to speak about all the knitting related things that I have, then I'm probably going to get into a bit of personal stuff again. We'll see. Anyway, I have here with me some, for once, cold beverage. It is what the UK people are going to call squash. I want to call it diluted juice. I don't know. It's sugar-free. This is with elderflowers, I believe. Elderberries, maybe. It's very tasty, it's very refreshing because it is quite warm in here. Even though it's cloudy outside and it's not as warm, in here it's still pretty warm. And I can't have the window open because you'll be able to hear all the cars and the train coming by and all of the children playing on the road. So we're gonna have to live with a very, very, very warm room. But we're gonna manage. So shouldn't we just get started? I think I've rambled enough about nothing, basically. So let's just jump right into the very first topic, which is, impressively enough, not the topic that I said we were going to talk about. So the very first topic that I want to touch on is, in my notes it's called thank you, and I don't think that thank you is going to be good enough to describe it. Just going to do some increases here. So I want to say thank you so much for watching my knitting podcast. I want to say such a big thank to all of the people that are engaging with me in the comment section. I think it's so nice to know what you're knitting on, how your opinion is, and also how I'm contributing to you going through your stash and maybe finding some new patterns that you can knit with it. I'm so glad that I can actually contribute with that and that I can inspire you to do that. You guys are inspiring me so much, even though you don't really realize it. It makes me just so happy that I have you guys and that I have this creative outlet where I can just speak of what I want to say. Like, I can just say what I want to say, basically. I guess I'd be pretty unpopular if I just did that all the time, but like, you guys listen, and I feel like you kind of understand. Even though we're not all in the same boat of being like unemployed and trying to find a job, I still feel like a lot of us can actually relate to each other with the fact that maybe we don't want to spend as much money on yarn, or we just don't have the budget for it. And I think it's so nice to know that so many are actually feeling that way, because I felt very demotivated looking in the past, like watching knitting podcasters that all purchased all of these wonderful, beautiful indie dyed yarn and this beautiful cashmere and everything like that. I've been so, I want to say jealous. Like, it felt so harmful to me, because I would always, like, I would look at those and be like, oh, why can't I do that? So I think it's so nice that we've come together, like this little community, where we're like, we don't really, like, it's cool that you have this indie yarn, but not all of us care about that. And I also really appreciate that you guys are thanking me for giving you inspiration for new patterns that are not just petite knit or my favorite things knitwear, because again, that was one of the things that I felt very demotivated with in the past, where I would watch a knitting podcast and all they do was knit from petite knit or my favorite things knitwear or the ranunculus or something like that. Like, they're great designers, they're a great pattern, the ranunculus. I've not knitted myself, but it looks great. But it's just so demotivating to just watch the same things over and over again. And I'm so glad that I can inspire you guys into finding some more unknown designers, free patterns, and probably patterns that you haven't seen before. Or not probably, potentially patterns you haven't seen before and really want to knit. But again, this is only possible because you guys are actually watching with me and you're engaging with me. And I'm so thankful, because you guys are giving me a lot more than I think you realize. And I'm gonna stop with this whole thank you party now, because it's gonna get a little icky. It's gonna get pretty cheesy if I continue. I can tell. So let's just move forward, but know that I truly appreciate it. For today's video, I had actually planned that I was gonna do a a knit and chat video, but I was gonna talk about copyright of knitting designs, because I had this like problem area and I wanted to address it, but I sat down and I literally think I sat here for like 1.5 hours and I just tried to explain it, and every time I tried and I watched it back, I got so confused of what I was saying. Like, it did not make any sense. And then I just sort of started giving out examples of what I was meaning, and then I started bashing people without having the intent to bash them, and it was ugly. It was really ugly. So we're not gonna do that. I'm gonna spare you for that. So we're just gonna do a very, very, very easy knit and chat. I'm gonna knit on this t-shirt. We're gonna talk about some knitting related things that are not anything about legality or ethics or anything like that. Maybe in an upcoming episode I'll go over it, but it didn't feel right for this one. So now you're warned. This was not the intended knitting podcast that I was gonna go for. It was not the intended content, but I think we're gonna be all right with it. Also, I'm very sorry if you can hear my knitting needles clicking. I'm not sure how bad it is, but I can hear it. So potentially you can too. I'm sorry for it. It's metal needles and it's not a lot I can do. So, the first intended topic of today's episode is gonna be how I find my patterns, and I think we're just gonna start from the end. So I find all of my patterns, or at least like 99% of them, I find them on Ravelry. I don't find a lot of inspiration on Instagram. I go to Ravelry and I search for free patterns, and then I sort the patterns into I sort the patterns so that they show the newest first. So I always get, like, if there's a new published pattern that is free, they are on the top of the screen. And that's basically how I locate any patterns that I want to knit. If I am going for a more specific design of a knit, I will go to the most popular and see if they have what I'm looking for, because oftentimes the most popular are the ones that have been there for, I want to say, many years. It doesn't have to be years, but the ones that has very high traffic, and that is often the ones that are trending, like has a piece, has elements to it that are trending. So that's how I find my patterns. I go to Ravelry and I sort it. But I often find myself going towards a more timeless construction or a timeless visual appearance. Oftentimes some Nordic Scandinavian styles that are very I enjoy the view of beiges, neutral colors. They catch my eye quite a bit more than like a neon blue t-shirt or skirt or whatever. So I get drawn to that quite often. And sometimes I'm just straight up lucky that I find a pattern where I'm like, oh, it's not really what I'm going for, but maybe if I just make it, it'll please me, just like I did with the Seaside t-shirt. I was actually kind of unsure of it when I first started, because it does have a shape that I'm not very into, like the A-line shaping. I'm not digging it. But I was like, we're just gonna try it. And it worked out great. So it's all about trial and error, most of it, but I do go for timeless pieces that I can see myself liking for longer periods of time. I am not into textured knits. I don't mind texture. I enjoy knitting texture, but on garments such as tank tops or sweaters. It's definitely not my go-to. I am so afraid that this texture is gonna go out of style within like a month of me knitting it, and I don't like that. I don't want to do that. And also I'm not a huge fan of lace details, so there's a lot of t-shirts on Ravelry which has this lace detailing on them, and while some of them are very beautiful, like I want to say most of them are very beautiful, I tend to avoid them. And even if there's a t-shirt where I think the construction looks very nice and it has some lace detailing, I'm just gonna totally omit the lace detailing because I'm not into it. And I know that if I'm not into the visual look of it on the screen, then the chances of me being into it when I knit it is just so low that I'm not even gonna try. I want to say I'm quite a modern, oh no, dropped the stitch marker. I'm quite a modern knitter. I am a young knitter, so that might be one of the causes for that, but I am drawn to very modern pieces that don't look like something my grandmother had knit me when I was younger. And that's not to bash anyone at all. I enjoy all kind of knitwear, but for myself I tend to gravitate more towards the modern, timeless, very simple structured garments, basically. It's getting so warm in here. I don't know what it is about this room. It's every time I close the door, it just gets so warm in here. Like you can almost see my arms sweating on this chair. So I'm sorry if that was too much. So nice with having like a refreshing beverage with me instead of coffee. So that's basically how I find the knitting patterns I want to knit. And that's been one of the questions that I've actually been asked a few times here on YouTube. And again, I want to say thank you so much for asking me stuff like that, because that's things that I never really considered, like that people want to know. I also want to say on Ravelry, if you can use it, if you can't, I'm very sorry, because that's where I link everything to. Please tell me if you can't, because then I will try to find something somewhere else where you can find the pattern. But on Ravelry, there's this very nice way that you can just search for something. So for example, I wanted to knit a v-neck t-shirt when I found the At the Seaside t-shirt, and I searched in Ravelry. I had the filters on for free and I selected all the tops, and then I searched v-neck, and then all of the knitting patterns which included v-necks, they showed up, and then I could just scroll through all of those, and it was nice. And that's basically how I find like all patterns. So last time I made a podcast, I had a section called hibernating or hibernations, I think I called it that, which was my Filcolana Crispin cardigan, because I didn't understand the charts that were in the pattern. So I made one entire repeat of the pattern, and then I had to look at the chart myself and continue increasing raglan and also knitting the pattern. And I couldn't wrap my head around it. It didn't make any sense to me, so I put it in a corner and I didn't touch it again. And I told you guys that the last episode. And I was also like, please, anyone, if you want to knit this, then tell me. If you have knit it, please tell me how to understand it. And one of you actually reached out and you were like, oh, I'm gonna knit it soon, so please be patient. And I'm so sorry to tell you this, but I'm not gonna be patient. I still want to knit the Crispin cardigan by Filcolana. I don't know if I said that, but it's not gonna be with the yarn that I had originally intended and which I showed in the last podcast. I don't know what yarn I'm going to knit it with, but it's not going to be the green yarn because the green yarn has gotten a new purpose, which is also one of you guys that suggested it. And it was such a good suggestion. I hadn't thought about it. So the suggestion was make a skirt out of it. And I had not considered knitting a skirt. And it's such a wild idea to me, and I don't know how I didn't think of it. But that's such a good idea. Like that, this color would be the cutest on a skirt. I have a skein just laying right behind you, so I'm just gonna grab it. So this is the green yarn, and I have a lot of this. I have a sweater's quantity, that's why I wanted to knit the cardigan. But I think this would be so cute in a skirt, and I don't know if I'm gonna wear it. But you know what? Maybe I can knit a skirt with it. Maybe I can even knit 2 skirts. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. And if I don't like it, I can donate it to charity. Something like that. Charity? Charity, yes, it's called charity. I can do that, but I think it would be so cute. Like a little skirt in this yarn, I think it would be so cute. So I went on Ravelry, which is where I find my patterns, as I just told you, and I searched for skirts, and they had to be free. And I just found there are so many skirts on Ravelry. Like, just as there's so many sweaters, there's so many skirts as well. But I picked out 4, and I didn't go through all of the skirts. Trust me, I did not. I think I went through like 7 pages and then I was done, and there's a lot more. So I'm gonna go through the 4 patterns that I picked out, and I'm gonna insert a picture of the finished item that's on Ravelry somewhere here, and they're also gonna be linked in the description. So the first pattern is called Skirting Around by, or it's called Skirting Around, and it's a pattern by Patons, right? I want to say, and I have some notes on how it's looking as well. So this is the one that has a lot of cables and textures around it, and it's quite a tight fit. So that makes me a little bit worried if you're using acrylic yarn, because acrylic yarn has this tendency to, like, it makes you sweat more than it keeps you warm. And I don't think that would be nice with this very tight fitting skirt. But I don't know, and I think it would be very, like, it would be a nice change of scenery if I did some cabling and some textures instead of just plain knitting, which is what I've been doing for the past, like, 4 projects, basically. So I think some cabling would be very nice. But again, I'm a little bit unsure of it, just because it's a tight fitting skirt, but we'll see. The next pattern is called Yoked Skirt. I'll just start over. It's called Yoked Skirt with Pockets, and it's by Cynthia Parker. Now this one really speaks to me. It's like a sort of skater skirt, if that's what you call them. That's what you called them when I was younger. And it has pockets. It's a knitted skirt with pockets. Like, what's not to like with that? I really truly enjoy the design of it, and people are trying outside. It looks to me like it would be a very cute in this color. So that is on the top of my I'm gonna do that list, hopefully. The third one is called Sangstrup Klint, and I pronounce that differently because I'm pretty sure that's Danish, and I am a Dane, so I feel like I have the authority to be like, this is how it's pronounced. It's from Filcolana, and it's a very tight fitted, I want to say like a bodycon dress, not a dress, a skirt. It's very tight fitted. It's like this meaty length. It goes down to your knees or calves, however long you knit it, obviously. and it looks very nice. It has this almost lace detailing at the waist, very nice. But again, I am worried of the fact that I'm gonna knit it with acrylic yarn and how it's gonna make you sweat on your thighs instead of keeping you warm. And if there's one thing I do not appreciate in the summer or even the winter is having, I'm so sorry, this is gonna be TMI, but I really don't appreciate having sweaty legs. Like warm legs, I can live with it, but sweaty, I don't like it. I really don't. So that is a big worry, and also I'm not sure I have enough yarn for it. But I thought I'd show it to you guys because I think it's very pretty. And I think it could make a great winter garment. So instead of only knitting like sweaters for winter, then you could also be knitting a skirt, like a woolen skirt. I think that would be so nice. And I don't understand why not more people do that. So the next pattern that I have for you guys, or the last pattern that I have for you guys, it's called the box pleated skirt, and it's by, and I'm so sorry for butchering this, it's by Kotova. That wasn't so bad. I thought it was gonna be worse. Kotova, maybe. And it's once again the skater skirt type skirt, skater skirt type skirt. Impressive, I know. Without pockets this time, but it's pleated, so obviously it's called the box pleated skirt for a reason, but has this nice pleat around it, and I think it would probably, like, maybe it would give me some shaping to my body because I have quite wide hips, but my legs are also quite large, so maybe it would just give me that, like, look like I had wide hips, and then I would just, you know, a little bit more feminine curve to it. So I'm also considering that, but I'm not sure how I feel about those very big, obvious pleats. But then again, I don't know how visible it's gonna be if you knit it in something that is not wool, because acrylic. But nevertheless, I think it's so cute, and I really just, I've almost fallen in love with like skirts. I just want to cast on the skirt right now. I'm telling myself I can't because I have this little fella I want to knit up, and I also have my Sea of Love cardigan by Filcolana, and I really want to get at least one of those done before I cast on anything else. But the green yarn has definitely been reclaimed, and I will, as a matter of fact, like, this is a promise, I will be knitting a skirt out of it. And so far, unless any of you guys prove anything other to me, I think it will be the yoked skirt with pockets by Cynthia Parker, because I think it looks so cute, and I just love the idea of having pockets in a skirt. Like, I love it. I don't know why I haven't thought of that before. So I am sorry to the woman who is gonna knit the Crispin cardigan and wants to help me. I'm still very much looking forward to you explaining the chart to me and explaining where it went wrong in my head. But it's probably not gonna be the green yarn that I'm knitting the cardigan out of, because it's gonna be skirt. Trust me. So, coming back to the Sea of Love cardigan, which I just briefly said I was gonna finish before I start anything else. That cardigan is proving to be quite the annoying cardigan. First of all, the cardigan is beautiful, and the pattern itself is super easy to follow. There's nothing there. But the stitch that you do the stitch work. It's like a dip stitch. I showed it previously. I'll just insert a picture of my cardigan that I'm working on currently. It's so pretty, but it is so slow. Like, I've not experienced any knit being so slow. And I don't want to say it's killing me, but it is killing me slowly, because I really want to get it done, and I'm setting myself goals every day to reach like a certain number of pattern repeats, but it's like I never hit that goal because it just takes way longer than I ever imagine it will. I'm on the sleeves now, and luckily they are a lot quicker. So on the body, it took me 43 minutes to make like one pattern repeat, whereas for the sleeves it only takes me 12 minutes. So that is a lot better, but it still takes so long. It takes forever, really. So that's one of my main issues with that cardigan. And also, something terrible has occurred to me. I don't think I have enough yarn to complete it in the size that I intended to. So I just pulled out the last couple of balls of yarn I had in the color I'm using, and I only have 250 grams left. No, not even 200. 150 grams, I'm sorry, 150 grams left, where the body I've knit now is currently 200 grams, and I still need the sleeves. So I have one sleeve almost done, but then I need one other sleeve, and then for like from the bust and up, so it's all gathered in the round there. And I'm just not, like, I don't believe it, or it's not that I don't want to believe it, it's just I've done the calculations and I do not have enough yarn to complete it in the state that it is now. So the body portion of the cardigan, I've knit 7 centimeters longer than the pattern told me to. And I did that because as much as I don't mind cropped things, I would like my cardigans to be somewhat long so that I don't need to worry about skin showing when I'm wearing a cardigan. And so I knit it longer. But now, seeing as I am in this very big worry of having yarn, or knowing that I don't have enough yarn if I continue it the way it is now, I'm considering ripping back the 7 centimeters that I did in order to get that yarn, so that I can add that to the yoke part of the cardigan, basically. And I think I'm gonna do that, or I know I'm gonna do that. The other option I had was to pick up another yarn and knit the rest of the cardigan in that, like find something else in my stash and knit the rest of it in that. But first of all, it would be a totally different color. It would be probably be like a different yarn weight, and I don't think it would be good. So I'm gonna frock the last 7 centimeters, and then we'll see how it goes. I am hoping that it's gonna be okay, that I have enough yarn to finish it. And if I don't, I'm afraid I'll have to like frock the entire cardigan, and I'm gonna be so upset with that because I've spent like 2 weeks working on it now, and I really just want it done. But you know, I also don't want it done if I'm not gonna be happy about it, because then I would rather spend the yarn on something else. But right now it seems very hopeless to get it done without having to frock the 7 centimeters that I added. So we're gonna start off with that, and then hopefully it'll be enough so that I have enough yarn to finish it. I'm crossing my fingers, truly, truly, truly. Also, just because, like, if it was that I would be able to get a hold on just another ball of this yarn, I could probably spend the money Like it's not an expensive yarn. It's from like a grocery store here in Denmark. But the problem is that this yarn does not, like, you can't go into a local yarn store and buy this yarn. This was something that was sold in a grocery shop. Oh, that's difficult. And it's like 4 years ago or something. So chances of finding another ball of that yarn is so small. So little. And like, it would be a miracle if I could find it somewhere. I think I'll try. We have this app in Denmark called Recraft, which is basically like a really great, it's a really great almost marketplace just to sell and buy other people's yarn. So for example, if they have any stash they want to get rid of, they can post it on Recraft, and then you can comment on it and be like, oh, I want to buy that. What do you say for this amount of money? And then you can buy it from other people so that they can get rid of the stash and you can get some new yarn. It is a really great app. I've only used it once because, again, no money. And also, when I buy yarn, I like to buy such quantities so I can actually make some. And when you buy stash yarn from someone else, it's often the things that they have left from a project, so it's not a lot of yarn that you buy on there. But if someone has like one teeny tiny ball of that yarn, it would just be a miracle. I think I'll just look when I'm done with this, just because it would be so cool if it would happen, but I don't think I'm gonna be that lucky, unfortunately. Although it could be really cool. It would really be nice if I could just finish the cardigan in the way that I had intended it to be. I don't think it's gonna ruin the cardigan, but it is definitely gonna mean that I have to wear some high-waisted jeans with it. And luckily I have a lot of high-waisted jeans, but I think they're gonna have to be like a bit more high-waisted than my normal jeans are. So I think that was it for all of my knitting chatting. I hope I could inspire you with some patterns of skirts, and also how I typically find the patterns that I share with you guys. I'm gonna continue with some just personal life updatey kind of things. Of course, I'm hoping that you're gonna stay with me to listen to it, but if you don't, I totally understand. It is very strange to listen to other people's life when you don't really know them. I personally think that it's very cozy to just hear what people have been up to, but I get it. But thank you very much for watching if you're stopping here, and thank you very much for continuing if you are going to, obviously. So last episode I said that I was gonna go to my parents with Bella and my husband, and we did. And it was a very nice trip. It was so warm, like it was way too warm to do anything. But it was very nice. So my husband, we got there on Thursday, and my husband left Friday because he had to go back to work and such stuff. So I was just there with Bella, with my parents, and it was very nice and relaxing. My parents live right next to a restaurant, a French restaurant, gourmet restaurant. It's very fancy. I was a waitress there when I lived back home. It's a nice restaurant. It's a very fine restaurant. But anyway, there was a wedding there. It was the owners of the restaurant, their son was getting married. So they had written out to the neighbors of the restaurant that there was probably going to be a lot of music and a lot of young people walking around. And they put up a tent. They had put up a tent in the garden of the restaurant. And the garden of the restaurant is like right at my parents' garden. So there's like a very tiny 3-meter wide road, like a little gravel road, not a real like an asphalt road, but a gravel road between the garden and my parents' garden. And they were doing mic checks Saturday morning, and it wasn't really that bad, and we were like, oh, it's not going to be worse than this, then it's going to be totally fine, and we just kind of like put it off, and then by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm pretty sure the bride and the groom arrived, because there was a lot of cheering, and then they started like there was a lot of talking going on. It was fine. There was really nothing there. And then they started eating, like right at the time where we started eating, and obviously we were sitting outside because it was too warm to do anything else. And in Denmark we have this very strange tradition at weddings, and I don't know if you also have that in America and everywhere else you are, but basically in Denmark we have this weird tradition that when at a wedding, if the guests clink on the glass with like a fork or something, the bride and groom have to, I think they have to get up on the chair, like stand on the chairs and then kiss, and then if the guests stomp on the ground, they have to go down under the table and kiss under the table. So it was like, while they were eating and while we were eating, there was oftentimes like where they would be clinking on the glass and then woo, and then a few seconds later they would be stomping on the ground and woo. It was fine, it was cheery, but Bella, every time they were stomping on the ground, she would just like, she wouldn't freak out, but she was like, what is this? Like, what is going on? I don't know this. It kind of freaks me out, so I'm gonna bark now. So she just, every time they stomped on the ground, she would just burst out barking. She did not fancy that whatsoever. It was, I don't want to say it was funny to watch, because it was actually kind of sad for her, because she didn't know what it was. And we obviously tried to calm her down and be like, it's okay, Bella. They're just having fun. But again, she's a dog. She doesn't, you can't really talk sense into a dog that's barking, because she's obviously doing it because she doesn't know what it is, and she's a little bit freaked out about it. But it was very funny to watch, basically. And also later in the night there was a speech being held, and obviously we could hear everything. Like I heard the groom's speech to the bride, and I was just like, oh boy, if you were my husband, I don't know, we would have something to talk about. No, I'm kidding. But we could hear like everything, every single thing. Like I know when they met and how they met, because it was so clear. Anyway, later in the evening there was a speech by the groom's sister. Yes, I also got that point. It was the groom's sister. But she was holding a speech, and I didn't really hear what the speech was about. But then Bella had to use the toilet. Like she had to go doo-doo in the garden. And Bella is still such a young puppy, so she doesn't, like, she's having a hard time concentrating on that particular like thing, like doing her thing when she's in new places, and if there's like noises distracting her, which there obviously were. So I would walk around in the garden and I was like, Bella, pee. Bella, pee. Because pee for her is like, it's like the word we've taught her, so that when she has to go to the toilet, we say, Bella, pee. Pee. And so I would just stand in the garden and I would just be like, Bella, pee. And as loud as their speech was in my parents' garden, I am a little bit afraid of how loud my voice saying pee to Bella would be at the wedding. So I think that maybe like they've had some, like the speech has been influenced a bit by me saying pee. Maybe. But nevertheless, Bella did her thing, and when she was done, the speech was over and everyone applauded, and I was like, oh Bella, they're applauding you. You're such a good pup. And it was nice. And the rest of the night was very quiet. We were inside watching TV. Bella was just sleeping because she's a really good pup. She just sleeps. And then I think we hit like 10 or 11 at night, and then the music started. Like, guys, it was so loud. And my parents, their bedroom is like right out to the garden, so they had the music just blasting onto their window. My old bedroom, which is now turned into an office, but I still sleep there when I'm there, it's a little bit more hidden away, but I could hear everything, like the lyrics to the music. I could hear it all. It was just terrible. And they stopped it at like 5 in the morning. I think it was like 5:30 when they stopped the music. So it was a long night, and you know that feeling where you're like, I really want to go tell them to stop it, but then again, if I was getting married, would I not be a little bit upset if someone came and told me to stop? So obviously we didn't do it, and it was fine. We did get some sleep, but we were woken up. We were woken up quite a few times by loud music. I want to say Bella was she was such a good pup. She just slept through the entire night. She didn't get up to bark at the music or anything, which was a bit worrying to me, but then again, she did just survive a few days camping in a tent. So she's such a good pup. I'll try to insert some video clips of being at my parents'. My parents live very close to Flensburg in Germany. So basically there's this little like sea fjord, I don't know what you call it. It's like it's quite big actually. It's like a big, let's just call it a sea now because I don't know what else it's called. And they live very close to that, so we had some nice walks in the mornings and the evenings with Bella. I'll try to insert a clip of it because it's very gorgeous. But that's everything fancy that has happened to me. I am going to a job interview on Tuesday, and I am super terrified of it because there's also going to be like a case that I have to solve, and I know what the case is, or I don't know what the case is going to be about, but I do know what they expect me to know, and I'm just so afraid that I'll either not remember a thing, or I'll remember too much and it'll give them the wrong impression no matter what I do, basically. So it's a bit terrifying for me, but you know, we'll have to make do. I'm a bit unsure if I actually want the job. I am feeling a lot of pressure from the Danish government because they are obviously paying me to apply for jobs. So I will have to take a job if I'm offered a job, I'll have to take it. But if I'm totally honest with you guys, the position that this job is offering me, it's a fine position, it's not that, but it's just the things that you have to do. I don't feel like I have the competences to do that. The competences? I think it's called competences. I don't feel like I'm good enough to do that. So that worries me quite a bit. And also, if you know anything about like software and such things, they basically say that the position is a full stack developer, so you're both in on the back end, the front end, and talking to customers and such. So the back end is all of the server part, all of the algorithms, all of the really nerdy stuff behind software. The front end is the interface you're staring at. So if you go onto YouTube, it's basically how the screen is built up, and there's a button there and you can click it. That's the front end. And then the customer part is where you basically go out and talk to customers and they're like, how do you like this? Do you like this design better? What problems do you think? So they sell the position as a full stack developer, but I have heard from others who have been offered a position there that it is primarily back-end work that you have to do, which is all of the algorithms and nerdy stuff. And I am not educated in that. Like, I can do it, but it is not my primary education, and it is not something that I really care for. Again, I know how to do it, but do I want to do it? So it's a bit of a whirlwind, because I want to make everyone happy and I do want to get a job. But it's gonna be, you know, it's not gonna be fun having a job if I don't like my job. So that's the current situation I'm at. I'm gonna go to the interview and I'm gonna, like, then I've tried being at a job interview. That's also something that you have to practice. And then we'll see how it goes. I think I'm gonna ask a lot of questions about, okay, so what's the position gonna be like? What am I gonna do? Give me an example of a normal week, so that they have, like, so they can tell me, so I don't just hear it from people that are already there, but that I actually hear it from the ones that are gonna, you know, give me the job. And again, who knows, maybe I'm not even gonna be offered the position, because I'll have to prove to them that I am capable of solving the case that they're gonna give me, and maybe I'm not gonna be able to. That is also a thing. So the job search continues, and yeah, I also have a meeting with people from the job center. We have like these centers where you have to meet up and have a meeting with professional people that help you get a job, basically. And I have a meeting with those on Monday, and I'm a bit excited and also a bit frightened on what they're gonna say, but we'll see. Maybe it's not gonna be so bad. I'm fearing it, but maybe it's not gonna be so bad. Anyway, I don't have any more diluted juice, or squash, or what you want to call it, and I'm getting quite thirsty, and it's very warm in here, so I think we're gonna call it for the day. I managed to speak quite a lot about my personal life. I wasn't expecting that, so I'm sorry if it got too boring, but I know that you guys enjoy knowing a bit of what we do here in Denmark, and I personally, like, I don't experience a lot, so when I do experience things, just like the wedding, I want to tell you guys about it. But yeah, I think we're gonna call it. I'm very glad that you stuck with me to this very end. And thank you for subscribing to my channel. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for everything. Thank you for engaging with me. It really means a lot to me, more than you probably realize. It gives me something to do in day-to-day life, and it challenges me to become a better speaker, a more concrete speaker. And it's also just very nice having an outlet where I can just ramble on about knitting stuff and also just personal stuff, because I think that my boyfriend is getting very tired of me talking about the fact that I don't have enough yarn for my cardigan. But you guys understand. You guys understand my struggles. But thank you very much for watching, and I am hoping to see you next week, next Saturday, where I'll be doing a regular knitting podcast where I'll be going over finished objects and works in progress and all of that jazz. If you want to follow me on my day-to-day life, if you want to see more of Denmark, if you want to see what I do, and also if you want to see more of Bella, then follow me on Instagram. You can find me at simplevanilla.stitching, and you can also just contact me on there if you want to chat about anything. But other than that, I want to say thank you very much for watching, and I will see you very soon.